Evening everybody, welcome back to EXA X4 and you join us here at Bahrain for round 10 of the Season A X4 Division Championship, and we're here for qualifying, so almost got a full grid, only missing one person this week, so I think everybody will be hoping to finish up in the points. Of course points are down to 15th in EXA. There's already a couple of the drivers just already heading out of the pits. We've got the Williams of Savane, and I think that's Rowley. I don't think it is. I don't know who's all going out on the track. We've got Mystic Rick out on the track. He's all the way up there. We've got Rowley. He's on an out lap. We've got Frost Rob, Dion, Savane, WL and Alpine. Over half the grid all out on out laps already. Of course Ultra, Showery Sauce, Hans, Ben, Phelan, Simwars 5 and Kumboy aren't out of the pits yet. Of course they're just waiting. And as I say that, here comes one of those drivers out of the pits. I don't know who. It was Hans that comes out of the pits. And who is that following him out behind him? That's Sinwars coming out of the pits as well. Looks like Kumboy as well there coming out of the pits. So we've almost got the whole grid. Of course people are going to get held up left, right and centre. So you see Mystic Rick, he's the first one going to go across the line. Looks like he's going to get a nice clean track for his first flying lap and the first flying lap of the evening. So he goes down into turn one, that nasty chicane there. Definitely don't want to get that wrong, don't take too much curb, because it's a big sausage curb there. So we see he's holding his car nice and smoothly. Of course this is only qualifying, of course it depends if this setup that he's using will work in the race. We've got loads of people on flying laps. As Mystic Rick just enters into Sector 3. As we see Mystic Rick coming round the last corner. And he keeps it on the track. And of course he's going to go provisional pole and he does a 128.6. We've got Dion just behind him that goes a 128 flat. Frost Rob goes with a 128.4. Rowley with a 128.3. We've got Simwars 5 on his flying lap. We've got Soul with a 128.7. Here comes one of the Ferraris over the line. Crazy with a 128.5. Makes it Savane not having the best laps there. Same with Danger Windstone. As we see Simwars 5 coming around the second last corner. Of course he has to keep it nice and in to the corner there so he can get out wide all the way down to the final corner, over the inside of the curb, and out wide and across the line. And he does just that. He's gonna go across the line. And I think he was doing two warm-up laps, I think. Yeah, he is, because he switched his ERS onto the hot lap, and he is putting his foot down. Yeah, you see Sim Wars, of course, looking to put that Red Bull up into the top 10, at least anyway. Of course, he comes round the second last corner. He's on the run down to the final corner. He comes round the final corner, and he's going to come up and towards the line. And where is he going to put it? He's going to put it in 12th with a 129.1. Because I think he will look to do a little bit faster on his next lap. See, we've got Phelan on a flying lap. Of course, he did have a really good race last week. So we're looking to do the exact same thing again. Of course, last week was also a night race, and that was in Qatar. That's it, as he goes across the line. And he just comes into the pits. What's Seven? He's on a flying lap, but it looks like we've got a couple of cars up in front. We've got the Haas on their out lap, with the Williams right behind the Haas of Rob there. Got Rolly and Rob both going on to a flying lap. I wonder how this is going to play out. Is anyone going to tap each other going through any of the corners, of course, on their flying lap? Looks like they've got a little bit of a gap there. So Zeroli just making sure just to keep behind Rob there. I think maybe using him as a tow along. Zeroli coming in the second last corner. Of course, Rob just in front of him there. Look how close Rowley is getting to the back of Rob. Just keeping that toe going all the way to the finish line. And Rowley puts it on pole with a 127.9 there. Not even a tenth ahead of Dion. So as we see if there's anyone else on a flying lap. Yeah, Mystic Rick, he's just about to cross the line for his flying lap. And he puts it on pole, provisional pole for Mystic Rick in the Aston Martin, 127.7. He'll definitely be happy with that. Now we've got Phelan on his flying lap, his first flying lap. Of course, Phelan usually one of the quicker drivers in X4, so he'll be hoping to pull out one of the fast laps out of his back pocket today. Of course, just looking for all the time that he can get, and of course more points to add on to the championship. Well, as Phelan comes round the last corner, where is he going to put the McLaren? It is going to be an 8th with a 128.4. That was really close there. Of course, the top 11 all held within the 1 second gap. We've got Ben, he's in the Haas, he's on his flying lap. Of course, the Haas will be wanting to put it up at least where his teammate is, of course. His teammate is, of course, Rob in the Haas, of course, sitting 7th with a 128.4. We've just seen a little bit of lag there for Ben. And he just comes back into the pits. But we've got Hans. Is he going to complete his lap? No, he is just coming back into the pits as well. Of course, get those fresh set of tyres. See, we've got Simwars 5 just going out for his out lap a little bit earlier than the other drivers. As we've got Showery Sauce. He's just about to start his flying lap, of course, probably at the precise time before everyone else decides to barge their way out the pits, of course, before all of the other driver when the grip is at its highest. Oh, Showery Sauce. Showery Sauce has invalidated his flying lap. Hopefully he'll be able to get back in the pits and get back out just in time. So we've got Simler's 5, he's just about to come round the final corner to start his final flying lap. And as he just comes round the final corner, it looks like an Aston Martin is coming out of the pits. But Simwers does get past before the Aston Martin can make its way out fully of the pits. And of course through that really tight chicane into the first corner. Of course Simwers 5, of course probably wanting to put it up near his teammate. Of course his teammate is Ultra sitting 9th place in the Red Bull with a 128.4. Of course right now the man on provisional pole, Mystic Rick. See Simwers 5 just trying his best to keep his lap as clean as possible. So he's on the run down to the final corner. We've got Dion taking pole by not even 1/10. Got Simwars 5 comes across the line with a 128.6. Let's see who else is on flying laps. We've got a long line of cars behind Mystic Rick on for his flying lap. Of course the Williams of Rowley just nearer the back of that little group there that they've got. You see everyone piling into the first corner. Of course Rowley will be wanting to go faster than Mystic Rick. Of course, but Mystic Rick's looking to not let that happen. He is 8/10 up on his time if that was right there. As they're on their way into Sector 3. So of course everyone's already on their last flying laps. Of course this will be the moment Kumboy takes pole, 127.713, only 4 milliseconds faster than Dion, his teammate. Will anyone take that pole position away from Kumboy? No, they will not, as everyone except Mr. Bean has finished their lap, and Mr. Bean has spun and his front wing has just came flying off. Not what Mr. Bean wanted. Now he's reversing down the back straight. There goes the set of Mr. Bean just going into the pits there. Just knocking over one of the boards. So we'll give you a quick rundown of where everyone is going to start for this. So we've got Mercedes, they've locked out the front row. You've got Coomboy and Dion, of course, just 4 milliseconds between them. Then you've got Mystic, Rick, Hans, Crazy, EXA, Rolly, Danger, Winstone, Rob, Phelan, Ultra, Seven, Souls, Simwars 5, Meeks, WL, Mr. Bean, Ben, Showery Sauce, and then you've got Mark. So that is your starting grid for today's race. And I'll quickly get a drink before it starts. As we wait on the drivers getting their setups ready. And under the floodlights, it's 5 red lights. And away we go, and Dion not getting the Coomboy not getting the best of starts there. Dion holds into his first place, of course. Coomboy there getting a drive-through penalty for a false start, and there's a Red Bull off the track. And there's a crash there. Oh, and there's Coomboy just right on the side of the Williams of Seven. Lots of accidents there. They've got an RB of Meeks away off the track. Goes Ultra getting caught up because he was the car that went flying off the track at the start, and there's a Ferrari. A Ferrari making contact with a Haas. Mr. Bean being rewarded a 10-second penalty. Not the best of starts there. It's all calmed down so far up at the back there. Of course, we'll just quickly take a look at who has dropped positions after that start. Of course, Coomboy started second, dropped down 10 positions. Danger, Winstone, Seven, Ultra, Meeks and Ben all getting caught up in that tangle. As I see Dion, of course, leading the pack still. Still just leading the pack through there onto lap 2. Of course, Dion lucky that he was not involved in that accident. As we've still got a few battles going on. It looks like we've got Coomboy going past Mr. Bean further down the field. Of course, on the back of Frost Rob, of course, he'll want to get back up. And is there something happened? Yes, there is. And it was the Williams of Roley. Looks like he had ran wide a little bit there. I've got Coomboy and Rob fighting. Was fighting for that 8th position. And we've got Phelan fighting for fourth. Of course, Phelan and Hans last week. Of course, they had a good battle. Because that was at also a nighttime race under the floodlights. And that was at Qatar last week. If you haven't watched that race, you need to go check that out. That was a jam-packed, entertaining race. You go back up to the front. Of course, I think, yeah, Mystic Rick has the DRS. He's in the slipstream. Is he going to be able to make that move? He's got to go round the outside. He has made the move. And of course, 1.7 seconds ahead of third place. Of course, that was the Ferrari of Crazy. Looks like Phelan did manage to get past Hans. Hans not wanting him to get away though. He's going to stick with him for the whole race. Of course, down at the back, of course, everyone that got involved in that accident still down there. We've got Mystic Rick and Dion battle for first place. Of course, Phelan's still ahead of Hans now. Of course, Mystic Rick will be doing everything he can to make Dion make a crucial mistake, so Mystic Rick could just put the foot down and get away from Dion there. Well, it looks like Dion is going to have the DRS. Is he going to make the move? It looks like he is close enough. And the back wing is open. And he has went past now. Got into the first corner. And Dion nicely done there, of course, using that DRS. That was a little bit of contact there. Just Mystic Rick just tapping the back of Dion there, of course. A little bit of debris, of course. Mystic Rick looking to go down the inside, and he does with that DRS. Dion with the switchback. What a switchback that was by Dion. Absolutely beautiful. And who's that? Stop. It's Rolly, and he has spun round. Of course, Dion just defending like nothing else. Of course, beautiful switchback there. Of course, we'll just go a little bit further back. We've got the battle for fifth. We've got Soul, WL and Hans. Of course, just further back, of course, you've got Seven Wars 5 in 9th place behind Frost Rob in the half. Of course, definitely looking to get past. Of course, didn't even check at the start of the race what tyres everyone's on. Most people are on soft, a few people are starting on the mediums, and only 2 drivers have went on the hard tyre to start. I think they'll be looking for a one stop this race. Let's see, all the way up at the front, Mystic Rick getting back past on the DRS. And that's Hans in the pits. And Simwars does manage to get past Frost Rob there. Of course, quickly do a wee check up. Of course, Frost Rob does have that DRS. But that does not matter, he will not get past him at that moment in time. And Frost Rob does get back past up into 7th place. Of course, if we go back up to the front too, you've still got Mystic Rick and Dion and there's Showery Sauce getting a 3-second time penalty. for multiple warnings. And Shouty Sauce has retired for the session. Looks like he did have a wee crash there, or he crashed on purpose. There's Souls coming into the pits. Oh, and Hans has left the session. It's just got a little bit further down, of course, the battle for 6th place, of course. We've got 5 drivers there, of course. We've got Simwars 5, then Rob, Mr. Bean, of course, with that penalty. Saven, Danger, Winstone. Battle for 6th is looking to be a heated argument between all of the drivers. Of course, all drivers from different teams. Of course, you've got the battle for 3rd, of course, Phelan and Crazy. Phelan just getting the better, Crazy, of course, the now anyway. Saven goes past Mr. Bean. And Mr. Bean just getting pushed a little bit wide there. I think that was Danger Winstone that pushed him wide. I'm gonna see, is Mystic Rick going to be close enough this time? I don't think he is. I think he's just gonna come close. But he's gonna try it. He is gonna go round the outside. He is gonna have the inside line, and he does make the move. Of course, Dion's gonna have that DRS. But just doesn't make the move happen there. If we go back down to where the battle for 6 is, we've got Simwars 5 going down the inside there. Just trying to make that move, and he does. He manages to get past, but we've got Rob, of course, want to keep his position. And we've got the Williams and the Red Bull of Simwars just getting squashed in between both drivers there, the Haas and the Ferrari there. Of course, I don't know if he has sustained any major damage on his car. No visual damage anyway. I can't see any on the front wing of his vehicle. As we go back up to the front of the grid, of course, you've still got Phelan and Crazy fighting. Of course, up in front we've got Dion and Mystic Rick. Of course, Mystic Rick's just trying to take back that 1st place, and he'll be wanting to take back that 1st place. And there's a 3-second penalty for Crazy there in the Ferrari. Of course, he has to now overtake Phelan and pull a 3-second gap out from between them both. Of course, that's going to be quite hard to do, especially with the 3 DRS zones that are on this track. See Mystic Rick, of course, locking up there, dropping himself way down into 4th place. But is Phelan going to be able to get into that 1 second? If he does, then he'll be fighting for 1st place. I think he's just trying to push it. I think if the Ferrari and Phelan work together, they could get within that 1 second gap and get the DRS. Of course, it is harder than it looks. And Mystic Rick, 10-second penalty, speeding in the pit lane. And we've got Mr. Bean round on the track. Got a little bit of debris there in the wall. Of course, Simwa's 5, of course, after that little squash there, of course. Now he's got the other Haas behind him of Ben. Of course, Ben, really aggressive driver. He'll be looking to get past that Red Bull, of course. The Red Bull will be wanting to use his defensive skills and his F1 experience to try and keep Ben behind him. And it just looks like that Dion is just pulling away from Crazy and Phelan because they're fighting. Of course, the few drivers that have came into the pits. Of course, Mystic, Rick, Sol, Ultra and Hans. We'll see what tyres they've went on. So we've got Sol's, Ultra and Hans all on the hard tyres. And Mystic Rick, he's on the softs, of course. He was fighting for first. And he did drop down into fourth. And now he's just trying to fight for 11th. And now, of course, wait until everybody else has done their pit stops. There's WL and Savannah, of course, coming into the pits there. Of course, first stop change. Sorry guys, I've just got to see if I have... And we're back, of course. Sorry, I just had to invite someone there. Right, we're back into the race. Of course, we've got Simwars in 6th with Ben behind them. Of course, we've still got Crazy and Phelan fighting. We've got Danger, Winstone and Frost Rob fighting. And there's Dion coming into the pits. Where is Dion going to come out? There's Phelan coming into the pits. For the first time in this race, it is a Ferrari that takes the lead. You see the Red Bull, of course, and the Haas fighting. They're going to be coming down into the third corner. Of course, Dion just 1.7 seconds behind on those new tyres. What tyres has he went on? Dion has went on the hard tyres. I don't know if that'll be to the end, but so has Phelan. That might be until the end. But we'll just have to find out and see what happens. You know, of course, this is a battle for 4th place at the minute. Obviously, you've got the other Haas battling with Danger Winstone for 2nd. And Crazy has been handed a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Of course, that does get dropped to a 5. As you see Ben coming into the pits. Dion, of course, realistically, your first place starter. And Mystic Rick. Of course, Dion going down the inside. And Mystic Rick going down the inside of Simwars there. Of course, they're getting up into 3rd and 4th. Of course, they already have made their pit stops. Of course, Frost, Rob, Danger, Windstone, Simwars 5, Meat, Coomboy, and Rolly all still to make their mandatory pit stops. Of course, Dion and Mystic Rick, of course, they have an intense rivalry right now. Of course, they're definitely trying to beat each other by any means necessary. Of course, getting really close. Of course, Mystic Rick is going to have the inside line. Of course, the Red Bull just trying his hardest, just trying to hang on there in 5th place. We see Dion, is he going to be able to get the move done? Going into the first corner, he does have the inside line, and he has the inside line again, and he manages to keep it that time, and Rolly has been given a 3-second time penalty. Yeah, well, of course, Dion and that trying to catch up to the back, Danger, Windstone and Frost Rob, of course, they both haven't made their pit stops yet. Dion, of course, just pulling that 2-second gap away from Mystic Rick. Because now that just leaves him with Simwars 5 and Phelan. And there is Simwars 5 and Mystic Rick coming back into the pits. Of course, serving that time penalty. That does put Phelan back up into that 4th position. As we go back up, and Mystic Rick's been handed a 3-second time penalty there. We go back up a bit, because the battle for first right now is by Rob and Danger Windstone. And Mystic Rick's been handed a 10-second time penalty for corner cutting. Of course, the question is, when is Danger Windstone and Rob going to make their pit stops? Of course, they've got Dion in 3rd right behind them. Of course, Dion's already made his pit stop, and when he came into the pits, he was in 1st place. And it looks like we've had an accident there up at the back. And I think it was, yeah, it was Mystic Rick. Of course, on the brand new tyres. And there's Mystic Rick retired from the session. Of course, Crazy looking to get within that 1 second of failing. Crazy's almost back into that 1 second now. And he has achieved his goal, getting back into the 1 second. Of course, he will get the DRS for the second DRS straight. And now he is back up into the DRS of Crazy. Sorry, of failing. Because we've done 16 laps of this race so far. Of course, Frost, Rob and Danger Winston still got to make their pit stops. Well, of course, they have got an angry Mercedes not that far behind them on the fresher tyres. And he does have DRS for the straight. And there's Rob coming into the pits, trying to get that, probably trying to get that undercut on Danger Windstone. Of course, we just need to see if it works. As you see Dion in danger, they're going to be having a fight for first place until Danger Winston comes into the pits. Of course, the question is, will Danger Winston follow Frost Rob and come into the pits this lap? No, he's not. He's going to stay out. And Dion just takes back that first place. Because Danger Winston has been on those tyres since the very start of the race. And that is Danger Winston almost out of the DRS. And I think he is about to be out of the DRS. It's just edged over that 1 second now. And Danger Winston just not coming into the pits yet. I don't know how late he's going to leave it to come into the pit, but I think he's leaving it very late. Because I don't know if they are actually battling. It looks like that they are. We have got Ultra in 9th, fighting his teammate Simward for 8th. Goes Coonboy in 10th and Meeks in 11th, of course behind them. And Ultra getting overtaken by Coonboy there. See, Coonboy is almost back into that 1 second. And there's Danger Winston coming into the pits. And that undercut did not work. That undercut from Frost Rob did work. Danger Winston leaving it a bit too late to come into the pits. Was crazy with that 3-second penalty. Just as I was about to say that, Danger Winston picks up a 3-second time penalty. Of course, crazy that only dropped him down 1 position into 3rd place. So he'll still be on the podium so far if nothing goes wrong. Of course, Dion just way out there in first, 5 seconds ahead. Of course, he's doing really well there just to hold his lead. Of course, he will be looking to win this Grand Prix. And you got Meeks back within that 1 second of Coonboy. Because Meeks does have the DRS. So how's it going up in 2nd and 3rd? Still failing in crazy PP fighting. See, of course, Phelan could just stay in third and still finish second because of the penalty, but I think Phelan just wants to get it on track. So you could say that he did come on first. Yeah, as further down the field, we've got a battle for 7th. Is Coomboy gonna go down the inside? He is. He does make that move, and we've got Hans. Meeks. He's just made the move. Because he's gonna have the inside line. See, of course, both drivers going to have the DRS. Because this is the battle for 7th place. Of course, we're looking to get back up into 7th place. Of course, no moves being made on that DRS straight. See, is anything going to happen on this straight? Of course, Dion just having a nice little race to himself. Of course, 4.8 seconds ahead of 2nd place. Of course, only 5 laps to go. We've got Soul's just caught back up to the back of Simlers there. Of course, these 4 drivers just managing to continue gaining on that hash just up in front there of Ben. Of course, Meeks will be looking to get past Coomboy for 7th place. Of course, it is the same for all 4 drivers. As you see, Ben has spun. Of course, all 4 of the drivers were catching up, but Ben, he did just have a little spin there, and that has dropped him down into 10th position. So this is now the battle for 6th place. We're going to see the Sauber going for a move. He's going to go down the inside. And he does make that move happen there. Of course, Dion just still 4.5 seconds ahead of Crazy and Fail, and of course Crazy does have that penalty. And there's Souls trying to get past Meeks, and he does. That's like Kumboy just get out of that DRS. So of course Souls will not have DRS for this long straight. And there goes Meeks and Sin Wars. Of course Sin Wars is going to have the inside line. Of course now Meeks is within that 1 second of Kumboy, but now Souls and Sin Wars have fell out of that 1 second of Meeks. Of course we only have 3 laps of racing left. Okay, there goes Sin Wars past Souls into the first corner. Of course I don't think Phelan will be looking to attack Crazy if he just wants to get second place anyway. Of course really good defending by Sin Wars. Is Meek's going to be close enough? Meeks isn't going to be close enough, but as Souls, he's going to go down the inside. He goes over the curb, and I think that was a Red Bull. He just think because he went over the curb there, he just hit into him. Because this is the final lap. Because as we go around the final lap, we have to go on board with the first place driver, of course Dion. And Phelan does get second place on track right now. And we've got a crash at the final corner. I think that is Rolly, it is. And Dion is over the line, he is your race winner. And we've got Phelan coming over the line in second with Crazy in third. We're just waiting on Danger Winstone coming round to take fourth. Third place because of Crazy. And we've got Rob going up into fourth, of course, because of Crazy's penalties. And we've got Coomboy and Meeks fighting to the line. It's wheel to wheel. And Coomboy just has to slide out a little bit. And Coomboy just finishes 7th with Meeks in 6th. We've got Sinwars finishing ahead of Souls in 8th, with Souls in 9th. Ben, of course, coming across the line in 10th. Then we've got Savan and WL, of course, 11th and 12th. We've got Hans in 13th, Rolly in 14th, Ultra in 15th, and Mark in 16th. So overall, that was a really interesting race. Meeks is your driver of the day. That was definitely a very interesting race to say the least there anyway. As we run through all the incidents from the race director. Right, so that was round 10 at Bahrain. That is all from me, and we'll see you next week for round 11. Good night, everyone. Have a good night, and see you next week.